Welcome back to Champion News Talk Radio, brought to you by championnews.net, where you can get all of these teachers' salaries and pensions, and that's what we're talking about today.
Where do you get them?
On championnews.net. Jack Roeser has been championing this issue for 15 years, and we
or on the Family Taxpayer Foundation, which is where it started 15 years ago.
Right. And you know what? These are your taxpayer dollars, listeners. Now, Jack, you were saying something that you started not only the private school St. Elizabeth.
No, I didn't start that. That's 70 years old.
Okay.
I've been hanging around St. Elizabeth's. Okay. This is 4100 South Wabash.
Right.
And it's been all black for 80 years. Well, it was Indian and black to begin with, but it's still a black school in a very tough neighborhood.
It's the main streets of Chicago is what it is.
Well, yeah, it's one of the southern Robert Taylor Holmes areas, and it's still a fairly tough neighborhood. But it's typical of what goes on. It's atypical of what goes on in Chicago, because Chicago's school system are a disaster. The kids that start a high school in Chicago, only 50% will graduate, and when they do, they're at the 6th grade level. That's not my observation. That is the expression of one of the managers of West Side High School. He wanted me to go there and make a few talks, which I did. Anyway, that stinks. In contrast, you got St. Elizabeth's. I've hung around over 15 years. I first visited with the Vice President of the United States, the one that couldn't smell potato. I've been hanging around ever since.
There's an irony in that. I'm sorry. He couldn't smell potato and you met him at a school. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, well, the press ran, and the Vice President couldn't smell potato. And
that's a private school. You also started or worked to start
I didn't start that one.
No.
I hang around St. Elizabeth's because it's such a terrific example. I love examples in life. Everything you do, people see you do it. And if the owner of a company stops and picks up a piece of paper and takes it over to the trash bin, people see
exceptional examples, and you're producing exceptional learners and kids out of this school.
They're so terrific at that, and that's why I've hung around.
Okay.
And I've
so
given
what about
them
the couple charters you've started?
And when I started, these women from teachers from District 59, which is largely Arlington Heights and Elk Grove, they wanted to start this school, and Pete Phillip, the head of the Senate, sicked them on me. And I got caught up in this web because there's a rotten trick, what do they call it, a Code 11 or something like that. The trick in the charter law is that you can't get a charter unless you've got a place to put the charter school. And who in the hell is going to build a charter school if you don't already have the thing? So they needed some damn fool to come along and get the land and start a building for their charter school. So I'm the damn fool that ponied up the money and bought a hunk of land and tried to start the charter school. That immediately brought the damn teachers union. It isn't a teachers union, it's the education union, this bunch of greedy bureaucrats that's running the system.
They didn't want the competition.
They turned out a bunch of hacks at the zoning meetings.
Yes, exactly.
They've made it impossible to build a school on that site. I was going to murder the kids, run railroad trains and buses over them, kill them all.
It's horrible what they do in that situation, and it's a perfect example to bring up a very, very important law, which quite frankly would be very easy to do here in Illinois. And it goes like this. It's called the parent trigger. And what happens is that if your school is failing, and you define the failing school in the law, you say what is failing. It's either a federal standard or a state standard or something. But if it's a failing school, the parents have a right to start a petition to flip that school into a charter. And here's the ironic thing about it. That law is passed in all places, California. And it was passed over the heads of the unions who still fought it. And it was passed by progressives, by liberals, who finally began to understand that you can't get a poor kid in a bad situation educated in this existing system. So the parent trigger is one of the more important laws to actually remove failing infrastructure from the failing district and convert it to potentially successful infrastructure of a well-managed charter school.
Is that law here in Illinois?
In Illinois, there's a law, it's called a conversion charter.
So it's not the parent trigger.
It's not the parent trigger, but you can convert a school by referendum. And all you need is 5% of the signatures. But first you've got to get the State Board of Education to approve your charter. So they've got to approve your charter plan. It's a little bit of a hurdle, but here's the biggest hurdle. In Illinois, the teachers have to vote 50% along with the parents at a school meeting. Very few tweaks would get a parent trigger here in Illinois, which would be wonderful for the kids in Chicago, some kids in Rockford, Waukegan, to trigger a school into a more effective charter.
Do you think our lawmakers have the political will to do that?
I think that if you talk to them about it, they have no choice but to listen. And quite frankly, this is a democratic idea.
And you know what? I like that. You said it's progressive. See, progressive is not always bad. This is a good progressive thought.
Well, the liberals give new meanings to progressive.
Right. You know what? We are going to hear more when we come back after the break.